All right, guys, in today's video, we're talking more about the Microsoft Bethesda acquisition because there is a very significant update that I think pretty much everybody should be aware of, whether you're a big fan of Bethesda or not, simply due to the fact that this is going to have some very significant implications throughout the rest of this console generation, and it's going to have a big impact on just the future of Xbox and even the future of PlayStation, not necessarily in a negative way either. I know that it's easy to assume that because of what's going on right now, it can be seen as a negative if you are a big PlayStation fan, but I'm going to talk to you about why this actually may not be so bad and ultimately could be a good thing in the long run. And if you think about it, what we're going to be going over today kind of proves that we are right about at least one thing anyway, something that we have been talking about for some time, something that we have been supporting for a very long time, and we'll get into that. But what I want to do first is just go over, in my opinion, the most important information that was revealed today. Microsoft did their roundtable with Bethesda, and there was a lot of energy. You can tell there was a lot of excitement, and I thought they did a pretty good job. They basically gave Bethesda the spotlight, talked about all the new teams that were joining, gave them the opportunity to speak and, express their excitement. And it was a pretty cool thing that they did. But towards the beginning of this roundtable, Phil Spencer addressed the question that everyone has been asking, and that is exclusivity. What is going on with the exclusivity situation? And in my opinion, Phil Spencer laid it out on the table pretty clearly, and I don't know how anybody could not walk away understanding what he's trying to convey here. So I'm going to read word for word what he had to say, and this is a direct quote. Phil Spencer says, "I'll try to be as clear as I can. Obviously, I cannot sit here and say every Bethesda game is exclusive because we know this is not true. There are contractual obligations, existing games, and even in the future there might be games with either contractual things or legacy on different platforms that will go due. But this is about delivering great exclusive games for you, Xbox customers, that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. That is the goal. That is why we are doing this. That is the root of this partnership." End quote. Now, I have to tell you, there is something that is being made abundantly clear with what he is saying, and that is they intend to make games exclusive. Now, he doesn't go into extreme detail about, well, this game's going to be exclusive and this game won't be, but in my opinion, it would be wise for any PlayStation fan or any Bethesda fan, I should say, who's on a platform outside of Xbox or is on a platform where Game Pass doesn't exist. It would be wise to assume that pretty much every big hitter game that will be released by Bethesda in the future will be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. The first part of this quote where he talks about contractual obligations, existing games, and how he says even in the future there may be games with either contractual things or legacy. Now, I want to focus on that word legacy because to me, that could mean a couple of things, but I've just seen a few people bring that my way. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, he's not talking about Elder Scrolls 6 releasing on PlayStation, okay? He's not talking about the next Fallout releasing on PlayStation when he says legacy. In my opinion, it's pretty obvious he's talking about games that currently exist on other platforms, maybe like the Elder Scrolls Online. They're legacy games. They're games that have been around for some time and they continue to get supported, they continue to get updated. That's what he means here. I say that because in the very next sentence, he says this is about delivering great exclusive games for Xbox customers. And I just have to put so much emphasis on this because there is just so much nuance and there's been so much back and forth surrounding the whole situation. Come on, it's pretty clear by this point. Microsoft, their plans are to make future Bethesda titles that are not contractually obligated to release on other platforms. Maybe like Indiana Jones is what he's talking about there. Obviously, he's talking about Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, but I think Indiana Jones is another game where apparently that was a deal that was signed before Microsoft acquired them, and it makes sense that a title like that would end up being multi-platform. That's just me assuming, but I think he's just trying to cover all the bases here. But when we're talking about like the next Doom, the next Wolfenstein, the next Fallout, the next Elder Scrolls, whatever's coming next from Tango Gameworks and whatnot, yeah, they're not going to be on PlayStation. They're not going to be on other platforms. They're going to be on the Xbox ecosystem. And the way he worded this, where he said that, you know, they are focused on shipping exclusive games on platforms where Game Pass exists. I mean, I think he said that with, you know, with an intention. You know, he said that with the intention being, look, Game Pass doesn't exist on PlayStation, and until it does, it's, you know, you're not going to get those games. It doesn't exist on the Nintendo Switch, so yeah, it's not going to happen. And I'm only going on and on here because I still see so many who are under this belief that you're going to be getting Bethesda's games in the future. I do not fault you for believing that, because let's be honest, like, Microsoft has not been very clear up to this point, and Phil Spencer has proven in the past that exclusives are not really the be-all, end-all, or at least he would have you believe that, right? So I do not fault you for believing that these games would come to PlayStation or other platforms in the future, but I kind of want to talk about why this is actually, in my opinion anyway, a very good thing for PlayStation. I mean, obviously it's a good thing for Xbox and Xbox fans. There's no denying it. This is a huge win for Xbox and its fans. Okay, they have a right to be happy right now and celebrate this. I don't think anybody can deny that. Now, if you don't like Bethesda's games and you're not a fan of them, and this is basically just whatever to you and you're indifferent, then I totally understand that as well. But I think that there actually is even a positive for people who don't care about Bethesda at all to be taken from this. And if you are a PlayStation fan who maybe feels, because, you know, let's be honest, there are some PlayStation fans right now who are feeling like, oh, geez, like, you know, I'm a big fan of Bethesda, and I you know, what does this mean? Should I be nervous if I'm going to stick with PlayStation? Well, let me tell you this. By Phil Spencer making it clear that these games are going to be exclusive, and that was the root of this partnership, it's to provide exclusive content for Xbox customers, this is going to push Sony even further. Okay, there's a lot of people who have the mindset right now that Sony shouldn't even be worried about this. They're probably not even paying attention to it because they're at the top of their game. They release big hit titles, and they've just been knocking it out of the park. And I agree, Sony's been doing a great job. I don't necessarily agree that they shouldn't be paying attention to this, because this is a big move. I don't think there's any denying that. Even just from a business perspective, I think it would be wise for Sony to be paying very close attention to this. But this is going to ensure that the competition is really going to heat up. And that's honestly why I am happy about this. I know that some people are going to think I'm crazy. Like, dude, you're celebrating losing a bunch of games potentially on the platform that you prefer to play on. Well, luckily for me, I'm not a big fan of Bethesda games, so it's not like I don't feel like I'm losing much. But this is what I've been asking for. You know, I've tried telling people so many times in the past that I don't have a massive issue with Xbox to the point where, like, I just can't stand them and I want them to fail and I want to see them go away. No, I've always made it clear that it's about the competition. My biggest complaints that were geared towards Xbox were this right here. Where are the exclusives? Where are the big games? Why are you not fighting harder? And in my opinion, this is Microsoft making it as clear as they can that they are getting much more serious. They are much more serious. And that's good, because that's going to keep Sony on their toes. That's going to ensure that no matter what happens now in the future, Microsoft is an RPG powerhouse. I don't think anybody can deny that. That's an area where Sony could probably stand to grow a little bit and diversify. This is going to force them to do that. This means that maybe the next game we get from Naughty Dog isn't necessarily a linear, story-driven action-adventure title, but instead maybe it's going to be a full-blown sci-fi RPG. You know, that would be pretty crazy, and that would also prove that this is a good thing, right? This is ultimately it is creating more competition. And that's what I love to see, because that's when we get the best out of, PlayStation. That's what has forced PlayStation to get where they are now. Think about what happened with the PlayStation 3. You know, PlayStation and Sony, the brand, their back was against the wall. They had to, you know, sink or swim. And so they started swimming, and they started swimming pretty quick with the PS4. And, you know, I'm not saying we have to get to that point again, but this is going to ensure that Sony doesn't ever get complacent like that again. That Sony is going to look at the amount of games that is, you know, Microsoft is producing, the type of games they're producing. They're going to acknowledge the fact that, okay, we don't have an Elder Scrolls on our platform anymore. We don't have a Fallout on our platform anymore. You know, we don't have a Doom on our platform anymore. That's going to force them to correct that, I don't want to say problem, but basically fill in that gap, you know, and they may have to do it internally on their own. And that's going to be good for us, you know? So that is the major positive that can be taken from this. I know that there's going to be people like, oh, this is damage control. See it however you want. Again, I think that Xbox fans should be very happy right now. I don't know how you could be an Xbox fan and not be excited about this. And I want to end this by emphasizing one last thing here. I kind of referenced this earlier in the video where I said maybe what Phil's saying here and this whole situation is maybe proving that we were right. It turns out exclusives do matter. Now, I understand that when it comes to Xbox exclusives, they're no longer just exclusive to the Xbox console, and in some cases with PlayStation, the same applies, but PlayStation's still more in the traditional exclusive to the single box, you know, type of situation. But the point is, exclusives have always mattered, and they will continue to matter. And if you don't believe it, just look at what was announced today. Phil Spencer says this is about delivering great exclusive games for Xbox customers. Okay, so whether you're getting it through Game Pass, whether you're buying the game flat out, whether you're getting a physical copy of it, the point is it's exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. I've always said that exclusives need to remain an important part of Xbox's plans, and we know that they're always going to remain an important part to PlayStation and Nintendo's plans. And I'm just glad, honestly, to see this, because this just proves that exclusives are important, regardless of what anybody wants to tell you. They are necessary in this industry. If there's ever going to be a day where there's no exclusives, well, I have no idea when that's going to be. That you're talking like way in the distant future, when things are just unrecognizable compared to what they look like now. Okay, this not only proves that exclusives matter, but it also proves that anybody who has been you know, kind of supporting exclusivity, you were kind of vindicated today a little bit, right? And I think rightfully so. Because when we talk about the reasons why exclusives matter, no, it's not about keeping these games away from other people and having less people, you know, embrace these games and play them. No, in some cases, we can see these companies branch out like on PC and stuff, but really it's to allow for the potential, right? The potential of how good can these games be? How good do they need to be to bring people into our platform, into our ecosystem? That's what this does. That's what exclusivity does. It keeps these companies on their toes. It keeps them making sure that they're going to produce the best that they can possibly produce. Granted, Microsoft does have the Game Pass net, but still a safety net. Still though, like in all, I think this is a win all around. Now, I understand if you are a PlayStation fan and you're reading this news and you're listening to Phil Spencer and you're a big Bethesda fan, like you love the Elder Scrolls, you love Fallout, and you've played pretty much all of your Bethesda games on PlayStation, I understand why you would be upset. And I think honestly you have a right to be upset, because going forward, you're probably going to have to play these games on the inside the Xbox ecosystem. And there's a lot of Xbox fans out there, not a lot, but I'd say some fanboys, some Xbox fanboys who go around, they say things like, oh, you know, Sony pony's crying now, and PlayStation fans throwing a fit, and, you know, just having a hissy fit and whatnot. And I'm like, look, like realistically speaking, no one's actually doing that. Okay, I think that most PlayStation fans are, you know, understanding of what exclusivity is and the importance of it. You know, I mean, if you're a PlayStation fan, I don't know how you couldn't acknowledge that. And when we heard that this was happening in September, even though there were many of us who were assuming that this wouldn't be the case, that these games would still come to PlayStation, I don't think it's necessarily a shocker. And I think that anybody who is maybe actually feeling disappointed. Again, it's most likely because they just don't want to play inside of the Xbox ecosystem. When they play the next Fallout or the next Doom or whatever, the next Wolfenstein, they want to earn trophies. They want to have that as part of their PlayStation, collection of games and whatnot. That's why I think they're upset. They just don't want to interact with the Xbox ecosystem. I don't think it's because it's like, oh no, Xbox fans, they get these games now and I'm so angry and I can't stand Xbox. I really don't think it's that. So anyway, yeah, obviously I had a lot to say on this, and I'm just trying to honestly look at this in a more positive light, because I really do think it's a huge move by Microsoft, and I'm not going to sit here and try to downplay it or make it sound like this isn't a massive move. I mean, again, I say this as somebody who really isn't a fan of like 90% of Bethesda's games, and even I can acknowledge like this is a big move on their part, and it's a big win for Xbox fans, and Xbox fans should be very happy. But I think that there are some positives here for PlayStation fans to extract as well. One last thing I do want to say, I know I keep going here, but I want to add this. The big question now, and we'll probably talk more in depth about this maybe during the podcast on Sunday, is what is Sony's response? What is Sony going to do? Should Sony do anything? Just to give a quick answer, and I'll go more in depth with this on the podcast, but I think that Sony would be wise to do something, but nothing major. Just a little something maybe next week or the week after that, just to kind of remind everybody like, hey, like we're still here, we're still doing our thing. Don't forget about us, because we got some big things cooking as well. That I'm not talking about them dropping like a God of War trailer or anything like that. Just a little something, just a little something, a little tease, whatever it may be. But I think that Sony would also be perfectly fine if they didn't do anything at all and they just wait until their big mid-year event. I think that if they're doing anything right now, if Sony is in the process of doing anything right now in terms of reacting to this, they're thinking, okay, what do we need to be ready for Microsoft to announce potentially in the middle of this year? Because now you're going to have a Microsoft event and you're going to have a Bethesda event, and there's a good chance that pretty much all of those announcements, or most of them, are not going to be, for PlayStation. So Sony might have to double up, and they might have to do something a little bit bigger. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the video. Leave your thoughts on this down in the comments below. I will be interested to see what you have to say. Leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.